G'day folks, welcome to an EcoFarmers Discovery, the audiobook companion podcast. Join Ewan Campbell as he takes a deep dive into his book, uncovering all the secrets of soil health, biology, and true farm independence. You can listen along to his book on Spotify or download from Audible, and then catch us here as we deep dive into the events of each chapter. We're now up to chapter 16. Here we go. Okay. Chapter 16, The Problem of Success. I've been looking forward to this one. This explains a few interesting moments in life that people have sometimes asked me about, and I said, well, you got to read the book.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting to follow through this process and see what's happened from here, because so few people actually came and talked to me or asked me about what was going on. And that was actually quite surprising. Whether they were dumbfounded or maybe I was a master criminal, I don't fully understand the process, because where I had so much an effect on the agriculture around the country and the benefit that was caused by it, to be then picked on and like everyone sort of just stood back and looked and wondered.
It's so wrong. It's so wrong. The good guy's doing something good for everyone, gets bullied, and everyone stands back and goes, ooh.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting process right from the word go. It's like they send a letter to you, which was just full of shit. I mean, just nothing. And having dealt with the meat board on doing trial work and that sort of stuff, they're just being nosy. It's none of their frickin' business.
Yeah.
It isn't any of their business at all. What if I'm going into business and I'm doing a good job? What business is it of the Commerce Commission? I mean, they clam out, it was hilarious. They said, when somebody asked them, like, when do you start investigating? Oh, once we've had at least 5 complaints. And going, oh, okay. So they didn't even receive one complaint from any farmer or whatsoever.
But if I recall, they invited people to complain.
Oh, yeah, totally. And that was through the fertiliser companies. And this is the most bizarre thing. The whole process was such a patsy setup. But what was even more confounding was that they were so open about it. Is this like, if that's the level of stupidity and skullduggery, that they just feel like they can just march on and do whatever they like? It was very, very noticeable as the process went more and more on. I kept on going, how do you think you could keep going after this when we've told you this, showed you that, pointed out that your expert witness is not an expert, asked for the expert witness code of conduct to be signed and all this sort of thing, and the judge saved their ass in the court, and I was not used to being in court at the time, but he says, I do expect that you've got the expert code of conduct. Oh yes, we've yes, we've done that, and where it was supposed to have been done 3 months before, so that if there was any knowledge or information to be challenged under the expert witness program, that your expert witness could then go, well, why haven't you looked at this and that and the other thing? Now, given that I had a patent, so in law, the patent office goes and searches worldwide under all the patents to see whether there is something of the same or similar aspect. And obviously they could find nothing. So, and even one of our competitors tried to use some university people to say that I'd copied a system of rock dust. And I'm going, it's got nothing to do with just rock dust. It's about electricity. And the patent office said, absolutely, you applied, and they challenged it. So the courts had already been challenged as to the veracity of my patent. And they said, yeah, you've got a patent and you've got a validity there. Okay. So immediately on having a patent, that means that it's new science.
Ah, okay. And that's really significant. New science means what exactly?
Well, where's the expert?
Ah, because if you've come up with the patent and it's new science, you're the expert.
Totally.
Okay.
So that's when it really came down to the part of understanding what's the trick you're trying to play here, because you haven't been to any farm, you actually haven't looked at this product at all in regard to how I say it works, and UV light, sunlight, electricity in the soil, no part of it all. And that was where it came back to this representation. And I didn't have a Black's Law Dictionary at that time, and I wish I had. Because basically the charges were written by the expert witness in a statement that he made, and they were copied by the lawyers, Meredith Connell, into the charge sheets, and I was charged for what he said.
So how is he the expert witness if you're the only expert?
Well, they claimed he was an expert witness, but this is the thing that I actually totally unravelled, was that they weren't taking me to court for anything to do with whether the product worked or not or anything. They were taking me to court on this trick of the false and misleading representations, which is, say I've got a boat and I've put it up for sale, right? And I've see, this boat is bloody awesome. It's 35 feet long, and it's got 2 masts and it's got this and that, and I'm going to sell it for this price. Right. And then a representation, someone would turn up and they go, oh, well, it's actually 35.4 feet and it's not really that good and blah, 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 or whatever. So that's a representation of the original claim or statement, okay? Okay. And what they're looking at is a false or misleading representation away from the original claim.
So everyone who's ever sold a car on Trade Me and said excellent condition for its age is probably liable to be got by these sort of laws.
Well, I mean, yeah, totally. I mean, this is how they'd worked this whole system. And it was really interesting about the whole process. I actually, I've run into quite a few people, and I ran into the head of the Commerce Commission at the Organic Dairy and Pastoral Group Conference in the autumn down the Hawke's Bay. And he sort of said to me, oh, I know that the Commerce Commission's been a bit naughty, on your, he said, you got a bit of history. I mean, that's quite a long time ago. And I just said to him, they just played their little representation trick. And he says, well, you didn't lie to the Commerce Commission, did you? And I said, no, but they made out I did. And he got it straight away. He knew exactly the process they'd used. And he just, he cringed and going, oh, shit. And it was really interesting, that whole process, because his wife, and this is a real example of what's going on out there, they've got a dairy farm not far from Nelson. And apparently it's going pretty good. It's nice and green and everything like that. And it's last year when it was dry and that, she was saying, like all these farmers around me, they don't even look at what we're doing or how we're doing it. And I'm going, well, perhaps you should look at the job that your husband's doing and the reality of what's caused by this major brutality on the attack on farmers and the farmers' inability to actually stand up and tell them to go swing. Because basically, farmers live in fear. They're scared of Environment Waikato. They're scared of anything. They're scared of MPI. They're scared. And like I can tell you, I have had so many experiences where people, when they get in the shit, they call me because they go, what do I do? And I go, oh, okay. If they're going to ask you this, you do this, this, and this. And if they continue, that's all right. But you've got your backstop right at the start. The first thing they come and say, well, you've got this. And go, well, you write back to them and say, please tell me the testing methodology, this, and this, and this. And this happened not that long ago in a M. bovis case, where it was an accusation to a farmer that he had M. bovis in his cows. They found it in the milk, and we just wrote a letter back to him saying, well, can you supply the chain of events in regard to the milk testing and blah, blah, blah. And they just came back within a few days, if you don't do this, we'll put you out of business.
Wow.
And so the next document says, well, thank you for confirming that there is no test, there was no test, and there was no chance of M. bovis. I will carry on the testing with my local vet. Local vet turns up, he does it, he says, oh, yeah, this has been going on all around Waikato. Now, so which is him underlining the fact that there's something going on here where they're trying to get people to do a process and scare them into doing it. Well, MPI, the first document they lay on it is like they'll put you out of business in the sense of there's no bobby calves leaving the farm, you won't be able to supply any milk, you could kill all your cows. And so the whole thing is just a full-on fear factor, screaming attack on a farmer.
Can you, just for anyone who's listening who has a passion and interest in this topic, but doesn't necessarily understand what M. bovis is. Can you explain that?
Well, it's a bug that can go through cattle, and it went into down the South Island, and like the problem is if they find a what do you call it, a reactor in the sense that it's got antibodies to M. bovis, then they kill the cow.
So the animal has to have an excellent immune system for it to be in trouble.
No, well, that's the problem. So usually when it went through cows, it went through a herd, it might kill one or two, then everything else builds up an immunity, and then it comes right. I mean, it's gone through Australia without a problem, and but MPI decided they were going to kill every cattle beast that ever had it here in this country. This is the fear that's imploded on farmers, and so when somebody stands up or gets in trouble or anything, everyone just stands back and watches. They don't get involved because they feel that they will be attacked next. And I mean, that was the same thing that happened with the agents. Some of the agents went and saw a lawyer, and one guy, I got the letter back, or he sent back and said, "Oh yeah, you're in big trouble. If this is what's going on, they'll be after you next. It'll cost you a fortune." The lawyer who knew nothing, I mean, giving you legal advice. So the whole process from start to finish is built on absolute fear.
Yeah.
But that's what the problem is. Because if you can't stand up to them, where does our business go if we're controlled by these people? I believe I had a hell of a good idea and a process that was having an amazing effect on soils.
Well, you must have. Probitas at that time was gaining national traction.
That
must have felt pretty good.
And international. Well, it was just a case of, okay, I've found something, and look what's going on, and this is pretty cool. And that's just the level of blatantness of how the system thinks, well, I don't give a shit about the 200 people or the 500 farmers that they're dealing with or whatever. We're just going to take this guy down. And they don't feel threatened by it, like that there might be a backlash.
Well, there's good reasons for that. People haven't backlashed in a very, very long time.
No, but they got more than they bargained with me, yeah.
Yeah. Let's go back to the start of the story where you were really successful at that time with Probitas. And speaking of the system that wasn't afraid of people, what was it that farmers were drawn to with your system, with the treatment on the land?
Well, I think once you got a couple of years under your belt and the few first adopters, those guys started talking to other farmers. So at that stage, that was the usual way of how information gets transferred and conveyed. The farmers used
neighbour to neighbour.
Yeah, farmers used to talk to each other.
Yeah.
And I've seen that just totally crumble.
Yeah, you'd like to see more of that.
Hell yeah. I mean, the thing is now that what we see is that farmers talk to farmers when they're at a Dairy New Zealand discussion group or at Meat and Lamb. Like, they're controlled by this, well, I call it the puppet master. They're flipping idiots, as far as I'm concerned. Like, you just turn up and you ask them a few questions, you find out how stupid they all are, and all the farmers sitting there going, what, somebody's actually going after them or talking to them or want some, some common sense out of them? And it's like, and reality is these people turn up that have had no farming experience. They facilitate nothing, and they just perpetuate what you've got. And like, what's the definition of madness? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
Yeah. Well, taking us back to the moment before you got the letter, how it all began, right? Things are going really well, and you're down at an open day on someone else's farm in the South Island.
Yeah, there was 3 farms that we were going to on that day. Yeah.
Tell me about the moment where those guys left the farm, tails between their legs. What happened there? Because that seemed like what caused it all.
Well, no, it was underway already.
Right.
It was underway already, and these guys, started blah blah blah, and I just, if I remember rightly, I just came and said, well, hold on here. Have you done the soil test on this farm? And I followed a process. Have you followed this process to see what this farm needs? And they were sort of like, they didn't expect me to be agile, on my toes, understanding what was going on.
Logical.
Yeah, logical. They don't expect any of that.
No.
Because everything they do is illogical, stupid, dumb, and fucking just for their own benefit.
Yeah, they've made a whole bunch of baseline assumptions from which they're making recommendations. You're going, well, have you tested these assumptions?
That's right.
I've understood it right.
Yeah, and so basically, you make the assumption, we'll back it up. And so then, there's 200 people standing there. They just start, and they were gone. They just disappeared in no time at all.
Wow.
And that's when, the next morning, we were off to do some other project with it. And the reporter from the Southland Times, I think it was, he turned up and he says, well, I've got this voice message from Richard Simpson. Don't you post anything about that Probitas, they're under investigation. So here we have manipulation of the media as well.
Yeah, well, someone got butt hurt and had to go and say something to someone.
Well, it was pretty obvious, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The ones that got their asses kicked and told to go and sod off. So we were a major talking point at that
Were
stage.
they actually told to sod off?
Yeah, by the farmers.
Wow.
They really said...
That penny didn't drop for me. So that was more than just leaving an embarrassment.
Yeah,
Get out of here.
Yeah, this whole process, and all the things that happened, I remember another client in Lindis Pass got a letter that was from Balance saying don't use these products, blah, 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 and all these things. And they were pretty blatant about what they were doing. They were just expected that they'd had the run of the mill for so long that they could just continue
and
to do.
And people would just do. They would just do it.
Yes.
Yeah, unchallenged. Oh, I shouldn't use this product. Okay, I'll just stop.
At that time, I don't think the effect of it was quite so much. And I think since then, a lot of them refer back to, like now, people refer to the Balance or whatever. Oh, that guy got in really bad trouble. And I just go, oh, yeah. Have you seen the video, the 60 Minutes program, which we'll talk about in the next? And they go, no. I said, I just go to this page here and watch that. And invariably, the farmers or whoever's watched it wanted to dive into the screen, grab the expert witness and wring his frickin' neck because it was just so full of shit. And the thing about it was, in this whole process, this is what was going on inside the courthouse too. Like, I made them look like the bloody Monty Python circus. It was that bad. Like, how did you do this? And this is the thing, that Peter Simpson, he was a police prosecutor. And so you could see that he had never, ever been put under pressure in the witness stand, ever. Because he sat in there and he got up there all plump, and then I just started peeling strips off him about your investigation. And the judge, you can't go down there. And I said, well, I've got to actually work out the veracity of this witnesses and whether he's valid or not. And the judge had to shut up because
that's true.
It was true.
Yeah.
And he just melted for a whole day. I just had him totally just screwed. Every piece of what he did was like, oh, fuck, that's not an investigation. That's not this. And I said, well, what about this patent? Oh, it doesn't mean it doesn't work. And I'm going, you never even investigated that. And so when you get through this whole process and get to the end of it, and the judge is sitting there going, what am I going to do? I'm going to withhold the decision for 3 months.
Okay.
And, basically it was, can I go home and write up a 28-page fairy tale that sort of makes look like that there was some validity to this process?
Is that another way of the judge saying, how do I get out of this?
Yeah.
If that is the motivation, why is it that it's a judge needing to feel he has to get out of it? What's his involvement other than fair arbitrator of accusation? I don't know, because I don't know.
The system doesn't get beaten.
Right.
That's as far as they're concerned.
So the judge is the system?
Yes, and if you're in the open, the system only gets beaten when it can't be seen it's been beaten.
I see.
It will sneak out the back door before it is too obvious.
Or ever acknowledges it.
Yeah, and they'll just disappear. And I've seen that so many times now. Like when we deal with shit, like it'll just disappear.
This is like when charges are just removed.
Yeah, things just go.
Allegations,
charges, whatever else that are made out of very pink, fluffy clouds. You just point out a few things to these people, and the next thing it's gone. And that's how the system disappears.
Right.
It will not show up front that the Crown bought a case that was invalid and that it was completely bonkers and they were off their trolley and they were under instruction of major fertiliser companies. And the Commerce Commission lady came out at that time and she said, well, the fertiliser industry is a $2 billion industry and it needs protecting. That's what she said. It needs protecting from me. Oh, Ewan, that nasty, mean person that actually might produce really healthy, clean food.
Because heaven forbids it doesn't need improvement or rethinking its approach or innovation. It needs protecting what it was doing.
Yeah, well, that's what she said.
Funny.
Totally straight out.
How did you find out you had an undercover agent investigating?
It was when he came back and demanded this for this interview. And I said, so I came to your farm again. So? Well, we got to have an interview. Why? Said, you should have found out everything you need to find out before. And basically, who were you to interview me anyway? Because you got no idea. When he came, I just worked out that he was a bozo. He was saying he was going to buy an avocado orchard, and I just, more or less said, why didn't you just fuck off?
Really?
Well, basically at the time, it's like, well, why don't you, if you want to do this, get some soil tests and see what's going on with your farm, with this block. And
he was sort of buzzing around like an annoying fly, and you're trying to figure out what's your motivation here.
Yeah,
this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and basically, because our procedures and processes were the same with everybody. Look, can you just go and get a soil test first so we know what's going on, so we can actually make some assumptions and work out how this goes on?
Yeah.
And, the level of skullduggery, the expert witness, he had a chap working for him, his father rang up asking for some product. And what that was for was the Commerce Commission was looking for some more product to test to try and just give a chemical analysis. And I said, no, we don't do that. He said, unless you actually understand what's going on or how, our science and that. So I sent him a video over to watch. And then the Commerce Commission got hold of the video and said I was making false, misleading representations out of the video. And this was one of the craziest and the funniest things. Inside the video, I actually had part of it. I was showing where there was electrical charge going from the soil to the kiwi fruit.
Right.
And I can do that with deciduous trees and all that. You can actually see the flow of electrical energy up the tree.
Wow. And
so here I was, the expert witness of saying there's no electricity in the soil whatsoever, except in the PED, which I think the PED was a foot in his head. But they were saying this thing all the time, and then they were going to charge me again for the video after that. It was another 13 charges after the 39 the first time. And it was actually showing the video with the electrical current, and they were actually using that as a representation, that there was one there. And I'm going, this is...
Like, which is it, guys?
That's it.
Yeah.
And this is where everybody that lives in fear fails to start asking the question, who are you? And what does this have to do with my farm? Or is this just to do with your business and the mess that you've made already and that you want to carry on creating this mess? Because I guess, if anything, what drove me was like, I wanted to stay on that farm. And to stay on that farm, I had to be really good at what I was doing. And whatever that was, and it didn't matter to me what it was I needed to find out. I just needed to find out so I could actually get on with it. But this process of discovery was certainly different compared to scientific trials at the university, which are just about products and little wee squares and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And so then it comes to the point, we're not allowed to discover anything anymore. We're not allowed to do anything anymore. We're not allowed to, the whole process. And what I really found out, and it was a really good discussion with you one day about the Apple iPhone when they first came out about it and how they advertised it, and it was 3-in-1, and that was the original real change in mindset, that you could go online and do all these from one device,
That's right. Yeah. Steve Jobs is repeating the three things that it was so that people could get their head around it. What we've got today is it's an internet communicator. It's a phone. It's a music player. And he keeps repeating it, and people go, oh, it's not three separate things. It's this new idea that we've not come to grips with before.
That's right. And
that's the problem of something new, is people don't have a reference point to get their heads around it. Yeah,
and the thing is that what Jobs was bringing to the market was something new that was not knocking another business out of the way, because it hadn't actually been, there's a space. There was a big void that was open. But in our case, we were coming along and changing the way you think about this whole process, and there's a $2 billion business in the middle going, stop this little bastard quickly. And so that's the difference that I found in this whole process. And I have, right through the whole process of us farming, producing quality product and all this sort of thing, it's the whole game. Produce food, stop them. Like, put up the prices, like little meat work's gone, big one's in, our meat industry's falling apart. I don't care, just stop anybody actually being innovative, run them down, attack them, whatever, just stop them. And, there's so little innovation out there now. You see a little bit on Country Calendar, but if you pick up the farming mags, and everything's wrong with agriculture. It's all
depressing.
It's screwing the farmers, we're screwing the farms, we're screwing the environment, and effectively they don't want us to do anything else, and we live in fear and we can control you.
Yeah, and if they've just got you in that little box and you don't have to, think too carefully, then you're exactly where they want you.
Totally, yeah. And the old saying, there's nothing to fear but fear itself, it seems an easy statement, but in the end, that's the problem, is that we fear the fear instead of actually just getting on with and asking these open, straight-up questions of these people. If they're there in a particular job and basis, you ask them the question, why is that there? And no one does anymore, because they're frightened that if they inquire into those people, that they will become a focus of the attention of these people and they'll be after you.
And for your curiosity, for your questions and the innovations and discoveries that came from it, you were attacked, and this is why people do live in fear. Speaking of attack, what was it like having your home searched and run through?
That was, when I really look back on it, and it was the beginning of the end of my marriage from that process, is that, our home is our castle.
Yeah.
Right? And you would like to think that that you had rights, and you do, and this is the real issue that we face, is that when they turn up at home with a search warrant signed by a deputy registrar, it's not worth a tin of shit. As far as the search warrants and any warrant from any police or anything like that, it actually goes back to some cases in the House of Lords that state, any warrant has to be sealed by the court and signed by the relevant party, meaning the judge. A deputy registrar on a piece of paper. Really? And so basically, if you understand that process of going, trespassing, fuck off. Well, we can do whatever. No, you can't. It says in your own law that you need a warrant sealed and signed. Go and get it. When you get it, you can come back. Otherwise, you're just trying to trespass on my land. And this is the case with
But it gets accepted all the time. People go, this must be legit.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely.
I mean, the idea of telling people who turn up to search your place with a piece of paper that they can't is beyond most people's understanding of what's within their ability to do. Would they not just force their way in anyway, thinking that they're in the right?
Well, I've seen them stop dead in their tracks. Yeah,
when they're told that.
Well, when there's a sign on the gate, and see that trespass sign under your own Trespass Act 2.2, you have to show the right process. Okay, you bring your process here properly. Now they don't do that. They go away. The police don't. They just put a number on their thing, and they don't go to the courts. They don't ask for because the judges don't give them. Because the judges know bloody well they get themselves in trouble without the right information.
Right, but if you then let them in and they discover things...
well, there you go. Did you let them in or invite them in? And then this is this entrapment that they use after that. And that's what we're all caught with. And so we're all living in fear of these bloody shiny, buttoned, people turning up thinking they've got all the rights and everything to do whatever on your property. And they threaten. Man, do they threaten. And the biggest issue is getting some turnaround back onto them. You can make this stuff go away, but when this behaviour gets completely out of hand, the system won't deal with the system. It'll just even if somebody's been horrendously badly behaved, it just fades away. Like just go around here, go away.
Yeah. What is the backdoor connection and the ties between the fertiliser industry and the Commerce Commission? Like, what do you imagine's going on there?
Look, it just
Is it an old boys network? What does it look like?
Well, it's a small country. Okay, we're in a tiny. Everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
Like inside an industry, like if you talk about biological or regenerative farming or something like that, and you talk to a company or whatever else, they'll know just about everyone else that's in the game. Every now and then a new one pops up and whatever. But, like my name's well known through the whole industry and that side of things. And it's the same with any other about who you got to talk to when you want to get something done. The system has its mysterious ways, and they'll just go, I'll have a chat with so-and-so. We'll get that done.
Was the biggest flaw in their case when they take the approach of misleading misrepresentations, was the biggest flaw that there was nothing misleading, essentially, because if you looked at it and tested it, you could see it was true?
Yeah, totally. That's why they don't want to they don't take you to court for claims, false and misleading claims, because then they would have to prove the product didn't work, and that's the problem, because it does.
Well, then what was the official reason for taking you to court then? I thought if it wasn't that.
Well, they didn't say that out in the open.
Right.
In the media, they're saying, I'm making all these claims. And the media quite happily has published this. And I said, no.
Incorrectly.
Incorrectly, yeah.
Yeah.
But they don't use that. And then they use this sideline, false and misleading representation. Now, I talked to, and this is how benign and crazy this whole process is. I talked to a Crown prosecutor. I said, what's this word representation mean? And so she goes to the Act, and you look under interpretation. Oh, it's not there. I don't know. Now, there's not a word that doesn't turn up now like that I don't pull my Black's Law dictionary out to find out what they're actually saying. Because first in time, best in law. That's absolutely. Like the first time the word was used in Latin or whatever else, that's the meaning they will use in the courts.
Okay.
So I didn't have one of those till after the court case. God, I wish I'd had one before, because I would have just right from the start, I would have had my focus slightly different. But whether it would have done any good or not, I mean, it is what it is. And I learnt from the whole process. And it was brutal. But I mean, I've seen so many people that have done nothing and tried to be nice to these people, and it was brutal on them, and they ended up with nothing as well. And they didn't have an education on the way like I got. So yeah, no, it's a big thing to know what you're dealing with. And so this Crown prosecutor didn't even know that because the word wasn't in the Act, that in my situation now, it's not in the Act, okay, and I'd just go and grab my dictionary. She didn't even have one. So this is the thing. It's like they don't even know what they're doing themselves. Somebody else has written this shit up from way beyond and put it in there and said, way you go.
How do you think you would have gotten on if you'd taken what people refer to as the living man law approach?
No good.
What would that have made a difference or made it worse?
No. Look, it was basically knowing what I know now is okay. My approach was just about, I didn't know enough about equity at the time, and then them trying to create a trust in which I was going to be the trustee of the trust. But even in that regard, they had to prove that I'd actually, or try and entice me to defend the representations. And I actually didn't. I just said to them, look, I don't know really what's going on here, because you're trying to take me to court for false and misleading representations, and I believe they are. Because I didn't write this.
Okay.
And I said to them, I'm not even going to try and defend that, because I never wrote that.
Right, and also the moment you defend it and say, but it works this way and this way, and honestly, it's like this will be what happens, you're then making claims about it, right?
Yeah, you're accepting the representations came from myself.
Oh, and you're also accepting that it's fair what they're putting against you.
Yeah, and I said to them,
by defending it.
That's right. I said, who wrote this stuff up? And the judge said, oh, well, it looks pretty close to the stuff. And again, he was protecting them. You know, his name was Judge Calendar, and he was as
really?
he was as leaky as a freaking calendar. God, but this is the problem. People are scared to say anything about anybody. Like the judge, his response to me when I asked them certain questions about the process and who declared was the defendant, because who made the representation, he says, oh, well, I was akin to a pee addict and I was nutty and all this. And this is what he put in the paper. And so for a few weeks, the papers were going nuts on trying to pin me down. Now, this is the crazy thing of interconnectedness of nutty behaviour. Like, there's a bloke that writes for the farmers' papers called Richard Rennie, and he was, I found out later, he was doing work for the expert witnesses, promoting him and he was writing about me in the paper about how bad I was, but he was the promoter of the expert witness. And so one day when this little prick rang me up, I said, why don't you get off your ass and come and have a look at the farm? He wouldn't. I could see Tauranga from where he was sitting from the farm. That's how close we were. I said, wow. Why do you not get off your ass and come and have a look and I'll show you? He wouldn't come.
Yeah, we're just down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like when you look at the whole process, you're going, you filthy little bit of stuff.
Yeah.
And I went after his editor after the case for what he was doing. And I said to him, look, you're in hot water here because you're using the expert witness promoter to write articles about me, and he's supposed to be independent, and you're publishing it. And, oh, shit, he didn't like that idea either. But this is the level of skullduggery. Now, this is the thing. Now I know how to shut a lot of the stuff down when people go, oh, this is what's happening, and you just go there. You'll hit the button, and it might take a couple of times, but they'll just scuttle off and disappear. And it doesn't matter whether it's the council or anyone else. If they turn up without relevant material, warrant or whatever, there's a process. You write back to them and say, look, can you give me this? Can you give me that? And, because you are under your law obliged to. And so once you get to the point where they can't give it to you, then they disappear.
Yeah, yeah. Going through this process and having your sales agents leave and start their own business must sort of feel like you're out or on your own dealing with it. What was that like going through?
Well, I think in the last chapter you said, one of the questions was, how do you handle all this business stuff and everything? And I said, badly. And basically this was a great wake-up call to me about how I had not retained the strength in the business in one central entity while we did this.
Well, what would that have looked like, retaining the strength?
Oh,
of business?
all
people,
our
relationships, connections.
Yeah, or even the way
the
that
integrity of staff or something.
Yeah, the way the agents were doing business and all that sort of stuff. I would have just said, "This is how we do it."
Okay.
And I didn't realise. It was just a whole new. So I never employed so many people, and I didn't employ them. They were contractors or whatever.
Agents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was such a wake up call to me about behaviour of people, what happens when the pressure comes on. It's all very well when the money.
You don't really have any control over how they operate if they're not your actual staff when they're in the field.
No, well, there was so many things that came from that process, just about human behaviour.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess every time I saw something, even that human behaviour thing, it's sort of like, that's worth looking into. And I, such an avid studier and reader and whatever else, it opened up a whole lot more avenues that I go, oh my good God, is that how that works and whatever. So what we do as farmers, or what farmers have got used to, is just being frightened, following a system, and they'll do shit even though when it's wrong, just because somebody told them to, because they think that won't make them fearful or whatever.
Yeah. Well, let's get into the heart of the matter. At that time, and you said it was the beginning of the end of your then marriage, it must have felt incredibly lonely going through this. Was there anyone that stood by your side? Anyone that's stayed loyal through the process?
No.
That's got to be hard.
No, I can't say no. No, there has been. There's been 2 or 3, but they've done their own thing. But they have, they've still been in touch and talked about what's going on and that sort of thing. But no, very, very, very few. Very few.
Yeah.
Most of the people, it's in this whole process of what I've worked out over time is that everybody thinks that there's only them in the game, and whatever effect it is, it's just them going to get, they have to look after themselves. But what we don't realise, and as we've discussed a lot through this process, is that we are farmers and producers as a whole in this country. And if we don't actually nurture our business as a collective, we go nowhere. We destroy our environment. We frighten our kids away from farming. We don't have the same processes. And I had a discussion with the guy that works with us, and his son-in-law's off working in Australia at the moment. He grew up on a farm. He's week on, week off in the lead mines, earns $150K a year. And he goes, wow, that's great money. But you got to fly out to these mines and live in the desert and all this shit. And then I go back and look at what happened when I was 20 years old. 19. Mum and Dad went away overseas. I was running the farm, milked 360 cows. And in that 12 months, which is a real snippet because I know exactly what was going on, I learnt to fly, and I paid to learn to fly. Now, and that was within a 12-month period. So I'll give you a context now. Like, you're looking at least $250, maybe $300 an hour dual for flying. So you're looking at least $15,000 to $20,000 to learn to fly.
Yeah.
Okay, so put that in concept. I paid for that.
Yep.
I put $5,000 in my farm ownership account, which got me $2,250 in tax back again. Bang in there. And I had $8,000 in my pocket from that year's work to go overseas with at the end of it. Now, in today's terms, that's the $150K.
Yeah, sure.
Right. And so, but I was working at home on the farm. I didn't have to go anywhere else.
Yeah.
And what was so cool about it, and I'm really glad that I went through that process, is that I'd go to rugby and all these other guys were in the same sort of scenario. They'd be contract milking for someone, then they'd share milk for this and do that. And then by the time they were, late 20s, they were off to buy a farm or do bigger share milking job. And so we kept our community. Like when you look at the local rugby teams around the place at the moment, you've got all these islanders playing for them and all that. And I've got nothing against all that. But what it is where are the locals? Where's my kids? Where's the other kids? They've been frightened away and pushed out. Or there's not enough money to actually keep them there. And yeah, and we send our kids away to be educated by the system to leave. And, like my whole, from what I saw through the whole process and from me travelling and looking and all that sort of stuff, if you're a community, you would have been sending your kids off overseas. Go on your holidays. Go and look for where we want to market our products to. Go and nudge around, try out all the other stuff and all that. Travel the world, whatever. But when you come back, let's have a real good look about what's going on. Look at the opportunities while you're out there. But we don't, as for farming families or anything, that actually do that.
No.
We're locked under this, farming's bad. And I mean, that's crazy. I mean, farming is one of the most noble professions there is, because you're producing the health of the whole world.
True.
And we're being told that we are the environmental vandals with this. Well, I dare to say that, what does the Commerce Commission look like if they don't get fed?
Not very good.
No. They'd call it the Holocaust.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they would.
And this is the bonkers thing about it. And so farmers don't stand up. We have these representatives, which they call federated farmers, who invariably end up in a political position. It's just a climbing up. Oh, it's terrible. But anyway, and it doesn't matter how often if you talk to these people, they just invariably run off.
Yeah, yeah.
They don't want to deal with us.
Apart from the Black's Law Dictionary, would you have done anything differently at that time?
Well, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, hindsight's a marvellous thing. And I mean, as it unravels, it unravelled. And I'm certainly not, I don't, you think you might have some regrets and go, yeah, we lived in an absolutely beautiful place and lovely family and everything like that. But I tell you, when I saw the fear on my wife's face at the time, my reaction was not to run away, to get away from that fear, but like, how dare you? Honestly, how dare you turn up and make all these wild accusations, and after the court case, they come and flog the cars saying that I hadn't paid my fines within 28 days. And, and they dragged her car out of the shed. There's black skid marks across the concrete. And, these people just know no bounds based on us, the old facsimile paper where everything fades and it disappears so you can't see it. And they go, I've got a warrant. And it's like, knowing now, it's like, can't step foot in this place without a warrant and I'll baseball you. And that's really that's the threats they make to you. If we understand that law process and going, show me the warrant. Oh, you can't. Okay, you trespassed. I've told you trespassed, and it's the best thing today with the phones and everything. You can actually photograph it or video it for other people to see. You're trespassed. Under your own Act, Section 2.2, you have to show the warrant and the validity that you have to come on this property. 3, go. Or I'll use force. I'm allowed to because your Act says so.
Yeah.
But everyone just packs it in. Environment Waikato turns up and they say, oh, yeah, this is the funniest part. This is really stupid. This is how weak we've become as farmers. Environment Waikato turns up to people's farms and they go, oh, we got the right to be on your farm. Okay. I'm going to look at your oxidation bond. So they go down, they look at the oxidation bond. It's full of shit. It's leaking. Where? It's leaking. Where? Oh, you need a dropper test to check that it's not leaking, but you said it is leaking. But no, we don't say that. What do I do? What do I do? Oh, I know what to do. I'll go and get my shit tanker and suck it all out and spray it on the farm. Okay, so where was it leaking? Oh, it was leaking onto the farm. So what's the effing difference that you put it in your tank and sprayed it on the farm? You actually just did it faster than it was from the oxidation pond from the leak, which didn't exist. Right. So now, this is where real law kicks in, is that there's a process under the Declaratory Judgments Act which says that all courts, meaning all entities, public, are bound by certain laws. And those laws pertain to the judgments of the highest courts. Right? And so Rylands versus Fletcher, a case in the House of Lords, is the most pertinent one. If you bring something onto your farm, if it is dangerous and you know that it could escape, and it does escape, then you're liable. Not till it escapes. Okay? So if it, in that case, it was chap had a mill, did some renovations, didn't do it very well, it rained really hard, the mill blew out and wrecked a couple of more mills down it, and they said, oh, it's an act of God. Yeah, but you didn't do what you should have done. And in the end, the House of Lords said, well, you didn't. You were neglectful. Now, this relies on genetically modified organisms, nitrogen, Roundup, and it needs to be applied in all circumstances, and it's not. Because people are using certain products and it escapes. Like, look at the food system. We have Roundup residues in all the food, right? And now they're proving that it's can hook to cancer. Like, there are cases in the US Supreme Court, like these guys were using Roundup and it caused cancer, and therefore you've got to pay. Yeah. So there's the precedent that you're looking for. Going, okay, there. So you're using Roundup and it escapes, and it does escape, and it causes damage. So as a farmer, we have to work on the premise that we're doing things within the parameters of the law. And this is where you stop this whole bullshit, and we need to stop it. We need to really, really stop it. Otherwise, we will never produce anything healthy ever again. Because what's happening is that there's people outside the industry that are looking after their own interests at the demise of the whole community. And it's really dangerous to have people outside of your community running your community. It's the old puppet master, Punch and Judy show. And no one's getting to see what's actually happening, and because they're all scared. And I understand that part, but what part of fear? Like, I love being a farmer. I love what I do, and I found that it was very beneficial to stand up, even though it didn't seem, stand up to these sods and go away or whatever. And I've learnt so much, and I've helped so many more people on different levels from that process now.
Yeah.
But unless we do stand up, what was the point of staying farming? Because basically, most farmers are in fear. And then if you look in the farming magazines that's telling farming is really bad, and the biggest part of their magazine is the back now, which is all the advertising for all the farms that are up for sale. Because everybody's scared of farming and doesn't want to be a farmer anymore.
Yeah, they're all trying to get out.
Yeah, and so they're not trusting themselves, going, well, shit, look at that technology over there. That's worth having a look at. And, maybe that we can sort our farm out here. And this is the part where the system within our own selves, within our farms, is that if you look after the farm, we know that we fix it environmentally. We know we fix it production. We know we fix food quality. When we like everything that everyone's afraid of the environmental and all these people coming to see them, you can actually fix it. And so, and you got all these documents and tests and records to show that you have fixed it. And guess what? The system leaves you alone then.
Funny.
So, like been through the ringer and back and seen what they're like, and you don't need to be frightened of them. You need to be wary of them, and you need to get information that, like really you understand what they're saying. It's like you talk to people and they go, oh, they've done this, this, and this, and they get ingrained that they want to moan about these. And you go, do you want to fix this or not? And you've seen that, and they don't.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
You mentioned at the end you were playing rugby and they were playing football. When did you start playing the same game as them?
Oh, shortly thereafter the case. Basically when the media got involved, it was, a change. But I had to learn the law. And, inside of what I was thinking and doing and everything else at the process at the time, going, well, if I'm going to really go back and get back into business and make this, I need to know how this works. So I need to know how this soccer game is played. And, unashamedly, 20 years later, I do know how it's played. And I know how to win.
So there's definitely been some positives that come out of this dark time.
Yeah, well, I mean, you don't, unless you're pushed into a corner, you don't start scrapping. And when you get really pushed into the corner, you really start scrapping. And it's just in my nature not to be beaten. I mean, you can get kicked down, but you get back up again, get knocked down and get back up again. And in that regard, I couldn't change any part.
Yeah.
Damaging for yourself for a while and for your own sanity, but as you learn and you put a focus to it, yeah, it is worth doing. It is well worth doing, and it's got to stop being fearful and start looking for the enjoyment. Farming is the most fabulous, encouraging, and enthralling business. You're a weatherman, you're a veterinarian, you're a milkmaid, you're a shit shoveler, you're a tractor driver, haymaker, cow feeder. You are everything. And on certain days when it's pissing down from the southerly and it's cold and wet and miserable and you're going, God, I wish I hadn't been here. But that's sort of what drove me in the end, was the Commerce Commission were coming at me and they're going, well, this is nowhere as bad as being stuck at the bottom of a gully trying to get a cow out of the creek, and it's flooding and it's raining and it's cold, wet, and it's like, well, you might as well stand up and have a go.
You might as well.
Yeah, and here I am defending being cold, wet, and miserable.
The irony.
But it's my right to do so.
Yeah.
And that's where I think people stand back and go, oh no, I wouldn't do that. But can't change it.
All right, I'll see you in 17.
Cheers.
Keen to dive deeper? Check out our audiobook and EcoFarmers Discovery on Spotify, or grab our free ebook, The 6 Things You Need to Improve Soil and Farm Profit. Links in the description.